You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions.
Shore Leave, episode 42, your second STLV experience.
Just what the doctor ordered. Right, doctor? I couldn't have prescribed better.
Welcome once again to Shore Leave. This is our 42nd episode, and note the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference there. 42nd episode, and tonight we are continuing to cover one of our favorite topics, Star Trek Las Vegas. I am Jeff Hewlett, and here alongside me is my co-host for Shore Leave, as always, the awesome Heather Barker. How are you, Heather?
I am doing great. I got all thrown off talking about 42 and thinking about 47. There are 57 days until STLV. We are just under 2 months. We're going to have lots of STLV, basically only STLV coverage coming in the next 2 months. So sorry, other conventions, you will take a back seat since this podcast was born of STLV. It will be our focus for a while.
Yeah, it's always the way it is leading up to the convention every year. I guess if you're a Shore Leave listener, you know that. And you'll be getting plenty of our normal coverage coming up here soon, so keep your eyes peeled on the feed for that. But tonight, we're going to talk about something that we haven't talked about, I think, on the show much before. And Heather's going to be a little more specific about this in a few minutes here, but it's the second con experience and all the things that go into having your second experience at STLV. And we have two very special guests tonight whose first Star Trek Las Vegas experience was in 2017, last year, and both are going to be returning for 2018. And the twist is both are coming from countries outside the United States. So pretty cool. Heather, do you want me to run the intros for our guests, or would you like to do it?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
All right. Well, hailing from Canada, our first guest is one of the hosts of our PoliTreks show here on the Tricorder Transmissions, Mr. Barry DeFord. Pleasure to have you back on Shore Leave, sir.
It's always a pleasure to be here, and it is again, thinking about this kind of surreal, thinking that the first time I listened to Shore Leave, I was painting and repairing my deck, thinking of the Santagorn poem.
Remember that story.
And now here I am, getting to talk a bit about going back to STLV. This is a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I remember you telling me that story, or telling us that story, actually. Didn't you tell it on a Shore Leave episode? We had you on right after the con, right?
I don't remember. I've been on a disco trek for sure, and I don't know if I've been on Shore Leave.
Oh.
And then but I mean I found you guys as fast as I possibly could. So that'll come out in the wash here, I think, as we converse further.
I think it will. So our second guest hails from the far off lands of Australia. We met him last year at STLV. Our good friend Jamie McGregor. How are you, Jamie?
Not too bad, thanks, guys. Great to be on the show. I was on that episode of Disco Trek with Barry, so I only appear on the Tricorder Transmission shows with Barry, seemingly so far. So and it was a great show too. It was I think it was the magic that makes the sanest man go mad, or whatever that episode was, which was still one of my favorites from Discovery. So and great to talk about STLV. I can very confidently say that when I actually went with my sister last year, and we can talk a bit about that later maybe, but I thought this was going to be a one-off coming from so far away and the cost involved in getting there. And I remember actually chatting to Jeff, and he said, so you're thinking about coming back next year? And I was like, damn it, I probably am. So anyway, sure enough, it's worked out again. So excited to be coming back.
That is awesome. Heather, you want to dive into a little more detail about the subject matter tonight?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I do watch what goes on in the group, and somewhere there was a conversation where the two of you talked about being on a show again together, and that's why I specifically reached out to the two of you so that we could make it happen.
The prophets
right.
predicted it so.
But yeah, so the topic of this podcast is essentially the second year slump. And I want to give Eric and Annie Muirhead credit for not only coining the term, but coming up with this idea for the podcast. I reached out a while back in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook for ideas pre-STLV, since we can't really top STLV 101. And we've focused on things like cosplay and dealing with social anxiety at conventions and stuff like that. So I thought this would be an interesting subject to explore, especially since for Jeff and I, we've been going to STLV. This will be my 10th consecutive year. And Jeff, you've been many times too.
This will be my fifth.
Yeah. So we've been there before many times, and then we have two guests that are returning for their second year. So I think it sounds like with Eric and Annie, what they said was that last year was their first time and STLV surged past all expectations. Now we're wondering if the second time can possibly live up. And so obviously, we can answer that from our own experience, but I'm also interested in what Barry and Jamie have to say, going into this second convention. Are you nervous? What's going through your mind? So that's the discussion that we're going to have. And I guess I'll ask that. I'm going to ask Jamie first, since you made the decision to come back. And I appreciate that both of you are coming from so far away, because I do know that the expense, it keeps going up every year, and not just creation tickets, but gas right now, for flights and everything. It's pretty monumental. So props to you guys for coming back. There must be a reason. So Jamie, why did you decide to come back, and how are you feeling about returning? Do you feel similarly to Eric and Annie, etc.?
Well, I will just say that the last year was, for me, it was phenomenal, because not only for me was it my first STLV, but I was not a massive Star Trek fan, obviously, but I was not a goer to conventions, if that makes sense. Conventions in Australia, I had been to one previously, which was in Sydney, which was in 2003 or even earlier, maybe. And as a sidebar, what was hilarious was interacting with a couple of people at STLV who were guests there and actually remembered that convention in Sydney and brought it up before I even mentioned it. I was like, well, funnily enough, I was there, and that was about that's the only other convention I've ever been to. So for me, I originally thought this was going to be a one-off. It only happened because of the DS9 documentary, Indiegogo campaign, and my sister and I, who had grown up watching DS9 basically and TNG, we went, we're gonna go do this DS9 dinner, which was at the convention, and we'll do this, and this will be awesome. And it was awesome. And I don't think, from the point of view of can you top that first experience of all of a sudden seeing all of these people that you know and love, and doing all of these different activities, it is actually quite full on. When we were there for all of the days of the convention, and pretty much everything on my bucket list of stuff I wanted to do got ticked off. So the question is, well, why would you come back a second year? And one of the things that was very clear to us from the interaction with the Facebook group and things like that was, year one, we just did absolutely everything we possibly could. There was not a single spare minute free. And you know what? I would like to go with a little bit more time, not feeling that you absolutely need to go to every single panel or see this person because, for whatever particular reason. And hopefully we'll have a little bit more time to meet a few different people or do something different at the convention. It's a slightly different experience than what you actually have year one, where you rush from place to place to place. You've got a photo up here, you've got an autograph there, you've got a, am I going to be able to see everything I want to see in 4 days? So that's the kind of interest for year two from my perspective.
are you like going into, because we're 2 months away, so are you feeling nervous at all, or are you like, I've got friends, I know the program now, like I know how everything works. Are you feeling more confident about it?
Yes and no. I mean, I think. Obviously, I've got there's a couple of people that we met while we were there. Obviously, the two of you, because we had actually listened to the 101 before going, the Shore Leave 101. So we were kind of like, yes, and those name tags were really helpful, and there's a couple of different things that got you in. But I will say that for year one, we just spent all our time going to the different stuff in the evenings and whatever. So I don't think we kind of met as many people as we would like to, and so. Don't get me wrong. Everyone was delightful, and anyone that you're standing next to in a queue or sitting next to on the floor of the main convention room, we ended up having a chat. Had a great discussion with some people at one of the Voodoo dinners, and so but with a little bit more time and without the feeling that, oh my goodness, if I don't run to this place, I'm going to miss something outrageous, then I think my suspicion is that some of the people that keep going back and back to STLV see it as something of a holiday. It's a vacation where they catch up with friends, they can relax a bit. Whereas I think the first time you go, especially if you're in a position of me thinking that this might be the only time you're ever going to get there, that you kind of want to get everything done so that you don't miss out.
Yeah, that's a great point, by the way, Heather. I don't know if we've ever even discussed that on Shore Leave before. We've discussed a million things, but I never really thought about the whole first convention experience being oh my God, I might not come back to this, or I might not get back to this. That's an amazing thought.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on it too, because that's very much what it was for me in 2009. And I did wind up going back in 2010 and even 2010. So 2010 was a Patrick Stewart year, and it was a $200 photo op with Patrick Stewart year, only Patrick Stewart, $200. And I went ahead and spent that money to get the photo op because I thought this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Who knows if I'll be back? Who knows if he'll be back, etc. And so you really do tend to go all out. And then especially depending on your budget, like budget is always limiting on what all you can do as far as going all out. But yeah, I didn't think that I would be going back every year, although I do distinctly remember standing with my ex-husband and watching groups of people and seeing them interact and feeling like there was family there and knowing that I wanted to be a part of that family. So yeah, it's a great point.
Very good point. Very good point. It's funny. I'm thinking about my first STLV, and I'm thinking to myself that maybe that was something that was on my mind back then, because I'd been to Vegas a bunch of times before that, but I'd never gone to STLV, and it was a kind of a choice because we just started the whole tricorder transmissions thing, and we're like, let's try the convention once and see how it is. And I don't know if either of us, myself or Craig, intended to go back again the next year. I have to kind of think about that a little bit.
We should do a poll in the group and see. I'll have to make a note to do that. So Barry's his STLV life has been pretty crazy since his first convention last year. I don't know, Barry, do you want to talk a little bit about of course your experience, but the fact that you made a lifelong friendship, and then out of that came a podcast, and now you're part of this tricorder family. And then the same types of questions, like, are you looking forward to this year? Are you nervous? Do you feel like it's going to be crazier or more relaxed?
Well, yeah, you're very right, Heather. You were actually the first person I met, Heather, at the convention. And I remember I saw you and I said, hello, Heather Barker. And you're like, hello. And I said, I really like your show. And then I walked away as fast as I could because I know that, I think you were walking with Claire. We were sort of in like the main foyer. And then I bumped into Bill Smith from the Trek Geeks and Haley Stoddart now from Trek FM and was like, hey. And then we talked there and then eventually got kind of clicked in. But yeah, I think to a degree, I never really left STLV, I think is the best way to put it. I had a bit of a shorter stay. My fiance and I at the time were driving to Winnipeg, and I got a message actually from Bill from the Trek Geeks telling that STLV had gone on sale on Groupon. So I was like, oh my goodness, I need to take advantage of this. And I got the blessing from as I like to say, the boss. And I started arranging, but it was a shorter stay. So much like in Jamie's sense, I was thinking, man, I've got to really pick and choose when I go. And so I ended up not going the first day and not staying for the last day. So my stay was actually kind of truncated. And I had a couple non-negotiables. I had to meet Michael Dorn because a lot of people like actors who have a lot of range and all this sort of stuff. I really respect Michael Dorn because he doubled down on one character for his career and built an entire species out of it, which I think is something that I think is kind of unsung. So I did get my picture of him at 10 forward with a glass of prune juice, cheersing him with it, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I never really left. I think, coming back this year, I've got some non-negotiables in my head where, there are some things I can't miss. There's going to be probably going to be a couple panels I won't miss. But I think more than anything, it's a matter of seeing people who I have made lifelong friendships. Like you said, Heather, both you and Jeff, even Jamie and I have continued a conversation since STLV, since actually our time on Disco Trek. And Jamie's prediction remains, we're hoping to have him on the show on PoliTreks pretty soon. Yay. So a little preview or a little spoiler there for anyone. I mean, Jamie's in the future. He might have already recorded it. I'm not terribly sure. Let me know how it goes, Jamie. But I think
no worries.
I think the biggest thing for me is making sure that I make the most of my time, not just going from panel to panel. It is much more of a cultural event. I just came back from an Ironman. I'm very proud of my fiance. She just ran a 70.3 Ironman on Vancouver Island. And I found the group there to be quite supportive. They're definitely, there's definitely a great energy. I've been to other conventions before in my life, but literally nothing compares to STLV. And I've said this before, they could hold STLV in Minot, North Dakota for all I care. I mean, Las Vegas is interesting. I can now say I've been there, but I don't really feel like I've been to Las Vegas. I feel like I've been to STLV, and I think that's an interesting distinction to make. Finally, I think, I'm going for the entire duration. I'm going to arrive a day early, and then I'm going to leave on the 6th, which
interesting.
I think so I'm staying the entire time because I don't want to be weeping in Jeff's arms at the foyer of the Rio this year on
Yes,
Sunday
please don't
morning.
do that again. No, I'm just kidding. You totally can.
Jeff, it meant a lot that you were there, that you were able to make a bit of time there just to
give you the send off. Yeah, that was a great time.
Yeah, and if I keep talking about it, I'm gonna break down again. So I'm gonna stop talking about that. And I think just for the listeners here, this is the emotional connection you make to this convention. I really have to say, I'm not a shill for creation. I'm not any of these sorts of things. I think they all do fine work, but it's the people. It's the fact that I can walk down a hallway and see Nicole de Boer and just say, hello, Mr. Boer, I love your work. And she says, thank you. And then that's it. We don't need any more. Or I can, fist bump Ira Stephen Bear, or I can, be in an elevator with several different people and just say, bridge. And just before the elevator moves and everyone laughs. It's just being a part of a community and really feeling like I could be myself. One final reason why I managed actually to afford this, and yes, prices are going up. I can't believe how expensive everything is becoming right now. but I ended up getting a mixed up flight visiting a friend earlier last year. And it ended up that I got a free flight out of it.
Oh, wow.
So the reason why one of the biggest reasons why I can afford to go to STLV this year is my flight there is free. And it was amazing because they're like, oh, we're so incredibly sorry, and like expecting me to be disappointed that I was going to miss an entire flight and have to spend an extra night in this other city. But I was so thrilled because I'm like, I can afford STLV. So like I was really trying to hide my enthusiasm that I was getting this free ticket for a botched flight. So I've kind of talked in circles, but that's kind of where I'm at.
So I think also what's interesting, talking about, making friends and meeting people, because for Jeff and I, especially, like that is the heart of STLV, and that's why we go. And we've said this repeatedly on the show. We don't go for panels, we go for people. Should be our motto now. But I think one of the things that may be slightly misunderstood maybe from our podcast, it does take time to build some of these friendships. So like Jamie said, like that first year you're running around doing everything that you can do, and so you don't get a lot of quality time with other fans, like really building the relationships. Fortunately, we have social media so that we can invest in those relationships and build them over the year, and then we see each other and we're like, oh my god, I have to give you a hug, I miss you so much, that type of stuff. But like for me, and especially because my first STLV, I went with my ex-husband, and then the next year we actually brought friends. And so that turned out to be a different convention experience because we weren't even at the convention as much. Like we went out and went to some shows at night, and had built-in friends. But by the third year for me, I was getting divorced. So the third year, I wouldn't say it was quite a slump, but that was the first year that I was truly going by myself. Did not personally know a lot of people. My great friend Frankie reached out and offered to let me share a room with her so that I wouldn't be alone, and that was super awesome. And so that year I wound up making more friends, and since it was my third year, I had more time to do that kind of thing. So while the friendships that we talk about on the show are all like really strong, we talk about going and seeing the same people every year, I do want to emphasize that it does take time to build those friendships and relationships with other people. And I think that part of that is this transition from we've got to go do all this, we've got to get all these photo ops and autographs and see all these panels, we've got to go to this party, versus having some slow time to relax a little bit. And especially since a lot of the guests just tell the same stories every year, I think that you start to find that out by the second or third year. And so that's a big part of why I don't sit for Shatner, or I didn't even go to the TNG panel last year, because I've kind of seen it and I've heard the stories. And yes, there will be new experiences and fun stuff, but for the most part, I'd rather go have dinner with my best friend, stuff like that. Jeff, how has it been for you? Did you kind of find the same thing where it took a while to really build those friendships?
Oh, for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's always striking to me to hear the similar recollections of your first STLV and being a whirlwind and going to the panels and your autographs and your photo ops, and you're so over scheduled and you have a million things that you have to hit, and you don't really get to experience much outside of that. And I guess for me, I was one of the luckier people, and I think my second year was a much different experience, and I got to meet a lot of the people who've become my friends and my fellow podcasters at this point, and I've only met more and more in the subsequent years. So I'm very optimistic for the second year for Barry and for Jamie, because I kind of have this feeling that they're going to wind up in the same place that I was after my second year of going to STLV. And I've told my story about my second STLV I think a couple times on Shore Leave before. So but I will say that the second con is a much different experience, and I know that it's not always easy to make the decision to come back, because Vegas isn't the cheapest place in the world to go, and it's not always the most convenient place to fly to. But I think there's something special about STLV that it makes it a much more interesting experience to go your second time and not be overscheduled, and see the people that you met the first year again and start to build those relationships, and they only continue to build the more you go back.
Yeah, and I also wonder if part of the reason people don't return, aside from it being more and more expensive every year, is that not everyone does have a first year experience where they even build friendships, or find STLV family and stuff like that. Because I'm always super sad when someone says, "Oh yeah, I'm not going back. I didn't have a good time. I didn't meet anybody," stuff like that. And it's difficult. And we've talked in other episodes, especially the one about social anxiety, about trying to be proactive in meeting people, which is very difficult when you have social anxiety. But there was a kitty. Sorry,
that was mine. That was my kitty.
Sorry.
The cat has social anxiety issues.
He actually does.
It's like, oh, I can't. Oh, feed me. But yeah, I think it's such a big part of what makes STLV, for us that do podcasts and that build these families and that interact in the group and are really returning because the people were awesome, versus people that go and they just go for the panels and all that. And okay, it was cool for 1 year, but they don't make those connections and find that community and don't come back. And that's just how the convention experience is for people. That's like when I went to Denver Comic-Con and I had social anxiety and it was huge and overwhelming and I didn't have a great time. And so I didn't go back. And for some people, I'm sure Denver Comic-Con or like Dragon Con, when we talked to Sue and Gary, like it sounded very similar, where people just find a very large sense of community, and that's what eventually drives them to come back year after year.
True. And I think it bears mentioning again. I know I said it earlier on, and we've mentioned it already at least twice, but I think that the fact that we've got two guests here, Barry and Jamie, who are coming from other countries, and not to minimize Barry, but Jamie's journey to the convention is pretty grueling. The fact that both of them are excited about coming back again for their second year immediately after their first year, they're not even skipping a year, is pretty significant. So anybody who's kind of on the fence about coming back again for a second convention, I think it speaks volumes that we've got two people here who are willing to make these more arduous journeys just to get back there.
Yeah, I want to address that coming back, and there was sort of talk of me not going back this year. Obviously, I have family commitments and stuff like that, and Canada is a beautiful country, and I just went to Vancouver Island for the first time. So I've actually been to, interestingly, I've been to more places in the United States than I have been in Canada. And so exploring my own country is important. But one thing I wanted to just quickly address there is people who are on the opposite end of the social anxiety spectrum, and that's me. I become a social butterfly and I explode into different directions, and I do different things, and I'm zipping and moving around. And my one concern is, and this is someone who I really want to kind of give his own moment, and that is one of my dearest and most best friends now. That's Shashank Kavaru, who I co-host PoliTreks with. He is a fellow who, I didn't really meet for very long at Star Trek Las Vegas, but have met online more and spoken to more. And now he and I have put together a podcast, and we know each other so incredibly well now. My one biggest concern actually isn't being introverted, but actually being so extroverted that I leave him out. And that is something that's weighing very much on my mind. And I can already hear him listening to this podcast saying, Barry, don't worry about it. I can do my own thing, all these sorts of things. But I get so excited in these experiences that I could end up neglecting people. So, I want to say hi to Heather, Jeff, Jamie. I want to see Thad from
Delta Flyer.
Delta Flyer. I want to see, Dan and Bill. I want to see William and Marty, and I want to see Jim. I want to see all these people, and I'm so excited. And I want to see John. But you see what's happening, right? I'm filling myself up so much, and I fear that what's going to happen is by day 3 I'm going to hit burnout mode, and then I become a hermit. And I really need to make sure that I'm not overextending myself and I'm not blowing myself out of the water and then alienating myself from other people. So that's one thing that I'm hoping all you, my Star Trek family, can tell me when to maybe chill out, take a sec, and stop being so explosive.
Jeff and I can tell you all about that experience.
Yeah, learn from my last year's experience.
I think, I know, especially since creating Shore Leave and with managing the group, and I've tried really hard. I mean, we both have tried really hard to make the group as interactive as possible and as present at STLV. And when we do that, it's not so much that we're just becoming extroverts and butterflies on our own. We're kind of forcing ourselves into that. And we were very enthusiastic last year. We were very excited about all of the things that we did, but I think I can speak for both of us that we truly overextended ourselves. And that absolutely does happen, where you are doing so much, you have to be in so many places at once. And I know that for Jeff and I, being introverts, like, we need our time away from it all. So I found myself last year having to retreat a lot, and I know that can be isolating, and it's not intentionally isolating. And I think that's a good point to make, because I know, Barry, it wouldn't be the same for you. Like, no one is intentionally, isolating anyone. It's just that you wind up overextending yourself to points that become critical for your self-health.
Like, I need a beer with Jamie. He and I have to sit down and talk about being crazy foreigners, right?
My shout. Happy to help. I'm not sure that will help you becoming that social butterfly. I don't know how many beers that'll take, but very happy to find out. Yeah, my situation is a little different in that I don't know too many of those people, but and there were some times, I'll be honest, last year where you're kind of coming back after whatever you've done during the day, and I kind of look up at that masquerade bar, and there's and you kind of go, right, am I just going to walk up and try and find someone that I don't actually know and talk to them, or I look at my watch, I'm already massively jet lagged and I want to do something at whatever time it is in the morning. It's already midnight, and oh my goodness, I've actually forgotten to eat the entire day. Yep. You do kind of sometimes, there are different people, as you guys have already discussed on this show, many times people are different, and some people go to these activities and try and force themselves to be more social, or be aware of the things that they have a tendency to do that they want to avoid, and you just got to navigate through that as best you can.
Yeah, and I think that's important with dealing with the second year slump type of thing. I am always excited for STLV, so I don't know what it is to be in a slump, except that maybe when I've been there and I've been overly tired, not having a good time for whatever reasons, etc. But I think that once you have the first year under your belt and you know how the convention works, you take that knowledge and experience and then think about how you're going to apply it to the second year. And that's not that's not just like with, panels and photo ops and stuff like that, but with socialization. And if you felt that something was missing last year, like you didn't get to connect with people, then if you want, if that's something that you really want, then I just say you have to try to make it a priority. And I say every year stuff like, make it a priority to drink a lot of water. And then, it's like you said, you go a day and you don't eat. Like you just don't, you wind up not really focusing on your priorities.
You think I'm kidding about that?
No, I don't.
there were several days, and seriously, so this is funny because it is the second year you go, oh, we'll do things slightly differently this time. We found out that there were a couple of days where we would get to the end of the day and go, we are starving, and there was nothing open. Like at the Rio, all the restaurants are closed. The only thing we could find open, like after midnight, was TGI Fridays over at the Gold Coast. Yep. So even though at the time we were staying at the Rio, pretty much almost every night we'd like, we're going to go to the Gold Coast and then walk back again. And so this year we just cut the middleman out, and we just went, we'll stay at the Gold Coast and eat on the way, eat on the way back to the room, and you're done. So anyway, that's actually a thought that we kind of said, oh well, we'll do things differently next year, knowing what
Yep.
That's a good tip, though, actually. Yeah. That's a good tip. I don't know if people who stay at the Rio, I'm not sure if they know that TGI Fridays is over there.
Yeah, it's got it's got a cheaper buffet and an Asian restaurant.
Not to mention they've got a Starbucks that has no queue. So in the morning, obviously if you're less mobile, it's not going to be great. But for us, we kind of would look at the queue and go, all right, for a 10-minute walk over to Gold Coast and get what you want. We were back before you'd be back before the queue at the Starbucks at the Rio had even moved. Yeah. So it was good. It's not a bad little spot.
For those of us who I am actually going over to the Gold Coast this year just for cost saving measures, but I am a cosplayer and I'm very much afraid. And I'm already thinking about how I want to manage the Las Vegas sweltering heat, because I do remember John Kikorian saying, minus 50 in Canada, you wouldn't walk around outside for more than 3 minutes. Why would you walk around in plus 50? And entertainingly, And so what is that in Fahrenheit? Like 120 or something like that?
I have no idea.
I'm not good with math.
I'm bad with that.
Vegas is usually between like 100 and 105-ish, even at night.
Okay, yeah. So very hot. Yeah.
Yes, that's the summary.
Uluru hot, I would say, for Jamie.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah,
I was in Townsville over the weekend. It was like 30, 36, 38. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, Barry, you're going as a Ryan Slave Girl, and you're worried that the green will melt. Is that right?
Well, that's the thing, right? I sweat very, very badly, and I don't want all that green paint to just come right off me. So by the time I get through, I instead look like the salt vampire.
This is a concern. It is a
terrible concern.
We recommend that you find friends who are staying at the Rio and ask if you can leave like your backpack or your cosplay or whatever in their room, which you have to have good friends to do that. But I stayed at the Gold Coast in 2012 and I did not do any cosplay I did minor cosplay and I didn't have any big issues, but I wasn't in long sleeve pants, wool type of situation.
Yeah, I'm going like DS9 Voyager. I've got my TNG and my TOS, so it's going to be I don't have the First Contact post, or like Dominion War DS9 outfit yet, but that could be a thing if Novos gets their button gear here. So yeah, I could be layering up on my walk.
Well, I think that I know that for me, as far as the second year slump goes, there's no slumping here. Every year continues to get better and better and better. Even the years where I haven't had the best time, and I'm just an optimist, so I'm going to find the silver lining. But I find that some years, every year is different. Like 2014, we just had a thread. I guess I posted the thread today in the group asking about celebrity experiences, being in the elevator with LeVar Burton or whatnot. And I was going through my photos, and 2014 was the year of celebrity selfies for Heather. And I haven't really done that since. I no longer go up to celebrities and try to get a picture unless it's super casual and available. I don't do that. So every year is different. Every year has something else to offer. And they just keep blowing each other out of the water. Jeff, what about you? Has it been similar?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's been similar. I think my last year I didn't do any photo ops or any autographs, and things. My whole convention experience has pretty much changed from my first year, and even my second year. I think there's a third year change and a fourth year change, and yeah, it's your priorities.
Sounds like it gets a little cheaper too.
Yeah, it can get a little bit cheaper. Sometimes the vendor room comes into play. You see things in the vendor room where there's a certain artist or a comic book person or something who has a book or whatever. I spent a little bit of money on Harlan Ellison when he was there, and Juan Ortiz as well. But
Shop LLAP
and Danny, of course, and Shop LLAP. I always spend money with her too, but it's a good shift in spending because there's only so many photo ops you can do, and unless there's somebody special who's showing up in any given year, the priorities kind of shift. And I think this year, we have a couple of people who may be a little bit different than what we've had in previous years. And I know I haven't had a chance to do a Cole Meany photo op before, so that may be on the list. But I think we've talked about it so many times in the podcast that your experience at the con just evolves year after year, and they all become different experiences after a while. And Heather, you've got more experience than any of us by a long shot. So I don't know if it's the same for you and being different as the years go on. But me going into my fifth year, I'm still expecting it to be a little bit different than the fourth and the third years.
Yeah, well, this year, for me, I think one of the things I'm looking forward to most. So first of all, convention-wise, I do want to get photo ops this year. I have a very limited budget, and so I'm not buying anything until I get there, and I'm trying to share photo ops with people. But with the Discovery cast that's there, I want to get as many photo ops with them as I can because I love them. I've seen Colomini. I have a photo op with him. I said he was cute and he was flattered. So definitely get that one because he's so awesome. But what I'm really excited for is connecting with, of course, all of our new members in the STLV group, but also Twitter people that are coming. And like Carl and my friend Patrick, there are just a bunch of people from Twitter that are coming, and frankly, I have it's like my Twitter Star Trek family, and I'm sad that not all of them get to come, but I feel like in the past year, and especially after what I went through personally and how many people reached out and helped me, it's going to be a very fulfilling and emotional STLV for Heather. And I share some of Barry's fears of not so much, am I going to get to go to all the photo ops, but am I going to get to say hi and really spend quality time with all the people that I want to? Because I never do. And I regret it every year. So that's, one of the reasons that we're not doing bingo again. Sorry, guys. But bingo took up a lot of our time, and then we didn't get to see people and do things that we wanted to do because we were doing the bingo stuff. So that, and then shipping the badges, those are things that we're doing to help Heather and Jeff be able to enjoy our convention experience.
True.
So super quick, I had asked the Facebook group a little bit about the second year slump, but if they experienced it, how did they feel going into their second STLV? And pretty much, oh my gosh, let's see. Debbie said second year was so much more fun. I knew what to expect and had planned more in advance, spent way more time meeting fellow Trekkies, making connections to my Trek family. Thad Hate, this will be his second year and he's super excited. Greg Rozier said no second year slump for me. Focused on the panels and stuff the first year. Second year, met and hung out with so many great people, including me. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with Greg some more. Marty made me sad because he said he's not as excited as he was this time last year. And I think that Annie and Eric are kind of in that same boat. And I don't know what to say except that I can't wait to see you guys. And I think we're all going to have a really awesome time. So I hope that as we get closer, everyone will get a little bit more excited. And again, we encourage people that when you feel comfortable, do try to reach out. I know it's hard to go up to people that you've only met online or may have only seen a user picture, but Jeff and I, we tried. I mean, we're friendly to everyone. So as long as you're not inappropriate or, sometimes you catch us, we're on our way to something and we try to be polite and let you know that. But otherwise, we're approachable and we're happy to talk to people. And I think that most STLV attendees, at least in our Trek family, are the same way. So I don't know. Do we have any? Oh, yay!
I'll buy anyone a beer, quite frankly. And the other thing I was going to say is to encourage people to use the, you've got these events set up on the Facebook group. So that's obviously the specific times and places. We didn't really get to actually use that last year. And so one of the things for this year is we're going to say, let's try and make some of those specific events. So rather than just rocking up at a particular bar or whatever and trying to get to know someone you don't know, maybe using those Facebook events as a kind of, that everyone's kind of going to be in the same boat might be a good idea.
And I will throw out a shout out to our friends over at I think it's Star Trek Las Vegas USS Rio group, because they have planned some more intimate stuff like a pool party, which we have pool parties too. So some of this stuff overlaps, but they have specific times and stuff. So they're doing that. They're doing a breakfast. We've got our solo travelers and newbies party. And then we have stuff like our Tricorder Night of Diversity party. That'll be on Saturday night. The Trek Geeks and Fansets party will be on Friday night. And those are places where you may find more intimate setting and connections. The craft swap is something cool. And we just get together at a table in the Quarks bar and share stuff. But we try to facilitate as many of those events as possible. We know that not everybody's comfortable at a bar. And so again, I encourage everybody, if there's an event that you want to have, just let us know and we will host your event in the group so that more people can attend, especially if it's not at a bar. The Rio needs to have better places for us to get together so that it's not just loud bars.
That is true.
Anyway.
And it's very important to counteract, Australian stereotypes. I'm also happy to shout you a non-alcoholic beverage.
Foster's for me.
Foster's does not even exist in Australia. It is the biggest marketing con of all time. You cannot buy a Foster's in Australia. It is amazing. Anyway, there you go. There's a sidebar that we don't necessarily need to go down.
Learn something new every day.
Good to know. This is what you learn on shore leave. So Barry, do you have any final thoughts, any advice to give to anyone who's in their second year slump?
I would say for anyone coming into their second year, you know what to expect. You know the costs of things. You know where you're going to be wanting to double down on. And I think those are the sorts of things that you want to do sort of a no compromise on. There are some definite people I want to see. There are some definite things I want to do. And in that respect, I have to be true to myself, because Jamie was right. The first year is a whirlwind, and you don't know if you're coming back. So you want to try to fill it up with as many things as possible. So what I would say to anyone coming into their second year, and I'm sure they're thinking it the same way, is where are my non-negotiables? What are the things that I have to do? And don't feel like you're going to hurt anybody's feelings or anything, because ultimately, though we are very much a family, and I would say we're probably one of the greatest families. If only we could run things, I think we would solve a lot of the world's problems. But I think more than anything, there are some things that you're going to really want to do, so do them. and don't be apologetic about it. Say, I have to go and do this. I too am approachable. If you're a listener and you have listened to PoliTreks, or you've heard me on any of the other tricorder shows or shows on other networks, do feel free to say hello to me. I am very, very approachable. Come on, I'm Canadian. I'll probably apologize to you like 4 times. But outside of that, I think the big thing is you're going to know what you really liked last year. It's kind of like hitting the buffet a second time, right? You know where you're going to go and you know where you're not going to go, right? Like I want the crispy spring rolls a second time, or, whatever. The garlic mashed potatoes are really tasty. So do those things. Make sure you don't compromise on those things, and really make it your own and enjoy it, so that third year becomes a lot more realistic to you. Because I don't know if year 3 is going to happen. I might skip it right now, but who knows what's gonna happen when I get back from year 2, right? So I'm just thinking ahead, and I'm not going to negotiate. I'm going to do the things I want to do because they're important.
I think that's a really good point. Jeff, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Well, yeah, I would reiterate a lot of things that Barry said and a lot of things that we've said on our previous podcasts. But, if you're considering coming back for your second convention, just listen back to what Barry and Jamie are talking about here. There's a lot to do when you've already done I know it sounds crazy. There's a lot to do when you've already done everything. You can actually be much more free and much more open and experience things that you didn't get to experience in your first year because you were so consumed with the schedule and getting everything in while you were there, especially if you didn't go for the entire convention. I know that it's been a little bit weird the last few years because creation has gone from 4 days to 5 days, and they seem to be continuing the 5-day thing, and that is a lot. It's a lot for people, and I know some people don't come for all 5 days. So, there's a lot to do and a lot to see. And, something else that Barry said that I want to really quickly hit on, and me being I guess, quote unquote, Vegas guy for so many years before actually going to STLV, there is really a lot to do outside of the con. So, don't feel like you're trapped at the Rio 100% of the time. There's plenty of places to go. There's plenty of things to see. If you're a parks person, there's tons of amazing national parks close by that you can visit. Uber and Lyft are in full operation. It's easy to get to those places. Valley of Fire is an amazing national park. I hiked there quite a bit, and of course it is very hot and you're going to need to stay very hydrated, but there's some beautiful landscapes to see in Vegas. There's some great museums. There's the Pinball Museum, there's the Neon Museum, the Mafia Museum. There's tons of great places to go and things to experience that are not connected to STLV. So those are always great options to do if you've done everything you wanted to do at the con and you want to see some other stuff. There's tons and tons of other stuff to do. It's not all just about gambling and drinking like you see on TV. So, consider it. If you're looking to come back and you're thinking about it and you're on the fence, not only are you going to be able to meet and see some people you've met before and maybe meet some new people, but there's plenty of other experiences you can have as well.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to a point that Barry made about don't worry about offending other people. And it's okay to be a little selfish, because I've spent my time on this planet always putting other people first and not putting myself first. And every year I say, I'm going to do I'm going to have a vacation. I'm not going to make it a work trip. And trust me, I love every minute that we are giving to you guys to do fun stuff. But I think it's important, yes, to focus on the things that you really want to do. And that includes spending time with the people that are important to you. And I think it's also worthwhile to just remind everyone that we're all in the same boat when we're there. We're all being pulled in 1,000 directions. And so be forgiving. Like if you have to do a hallway drive-by and that's all you get, sometimes that's what happens. And there's no intentions there. It's just that we're all fish in a big pond trying to find the food. I don't know. We're just all doing a lot of things at once. And so this stuff happens. It's important to remember that and, not be offended if you don't get to spend a lot of time with the person that you wanted to get to spend time with. I'm going to try my best to thank everyone who has supported our show and supported me the past year and what I've been through personally. Those are the really important things for me to do this year. I'm super excited. Like I said, this is my 10th year, and I'm just as excited this year as I was my first year and my 5th year. So I hope that anyone who's feeling little second year slump after you get past the second year, you're going to come back and you can come on the show and tell us what a great time you had. That's what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Can I quickly pick up on Barry's analogy? I just want to pick up on the buffet and torture it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's like coming back to the buffet the second day. Having made yourself thoroughly sick the first day, but enjoying every single minute of it. So anyway, now the second time you go back to the buffet, now you're going to pick and choose. So I think that's what STLV will be like the second time around for me. But can I just raise one final thing around a positive and a negative impression I got from last year's trip? I'd be interested to know what you think about it. We were kind of really touched by the generosity in some ways of people and their capacity to whinge in others. We were in line for Nana Visitor an autograph, and someone just came up and said, "Hey, we've already got Renee's autograph. We've got a spare ticket here. Do you want it?" And it was kind of like, "Oh, thank you so much." And there was just random acts of kindness and generosity we had through the con. Another example of that was we were needing one of these, the silver Sharpies that that all of the talent have to sign with, but we wanted to get something from Ira Stephen Bear, who was just wandering around the con and didn't have his own Sharpie. So we put a message on the convention group, and within about 2 minutes, someone had come back and said, "Meet me here and I'll give you a Sharpie," or whatever. So people have a great capacity for kindness and generosity, I find, at these things, which goes with the nature of Trek fandom. Having said that, have they previously had that app in previous years?
No.
Kind of, I forgot what it's called, but it was like
Hoova.
Right.
It was pretty bad.
Hoova app, which just seemed to be the place you could go to whinge and bitch and complain. And it was actually amazing. I remember running into Jeff saying, "Have you seen what people have the capacity to complain about online?"
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't think we should have been surprised, but the app was actually really good for some other things. But anyway, I'd probably suggest if you want to stay positive, maybe don't log on to that app.
Yeah.
Just stay in our group.
Much better time.
Yeah, the group is way stronger.
Yeah, shameless plug that's what the group would be without rules and without trying to emphasize positivity. And it's frustrating for me because even today I woke up to a nasty note from somebody I kicked out because they were being disrespectful. And it's just like, if our group wasn't what it was, it would be like that. And who wants that? Creation does have a new app coming out this year, and I have no idea what it's called. I remember seeing something. It may be on the Creation website, or maybe it was in the official group. I don't know, but they were using a different app this year. We actually had some group members trying to make their own just to make it conducive. And Jeff did make a web page. It's not quite an app, but you can save it on your phone and pull it up. And it had a bunch of the STLV 101 podcasts and links to a lot of things. So that's also super helpful. But yeah, I focus on the kindness. I think
sorry, I just remember one other thing. I've got to say thanks to whoever it was. That was because this person gave us this Renee ticket. It was a gold member's ticket, but because we weren't in gold, we were the very, very last people. And some angel was sitting there and actually put into the group what what rose had been called at what time, which meant we could sit there in Quarks and drink and wait until the very end and not miss anything. And whoever those people were, thank you so much.
Yes.
That was very kind of you to sit there and let us know exactly what rows were called at what time. So,
Yes.
yeah, the
Group is great for that.
The Facebook group has a wide range of benefits for STLV attendees.
Stick with us. We don't really moderate a whole lot when we're there because obviously we're at the convention enjoying ourselves as well. So we take off the approval that's on posts, the whatever it is. So you can just post to it automatically. That way you can get a Sharpie when you need a Sharpie. And we just ask that members kind of, help us moderate. And if you see people being jerks or weird spam or something, let us know and we'll delete it right away. But yeah, I think it's important to remember that while yes, we are all Star Trek fans and we like to hold Star Trek fans to high esteem, we're also human. And we are just like the rest of the world population. There are really amazing people. There are not so considerate people. And again, that's why I think it's just important to remember that. Always be kind and considerate to others. And realize that even if someone is not kind and considerate to you, they may have a reason, and they may not. But if they're just a jerk, let it slide off your back and move on. So let's let people know how they can find us, since we're all so friendly and open, and we do want to engage with you. Jamie, where can we find you on social media?
Probably the best way. I'm on Twitter. I don't post a massive amount, but I'll certainly respond to requests for that beer that I've promised. So that's at jmac_ref, JMAC_REF. So that's my Twitter handle.
Awesome. Barry, what about you?
You can find me also on Twitter at Bjorn DeFjord, BJORNDEFJORD. And then also you can follow PoliTreks at PoliTreks on Facebook or on Twitter. And you can definitely hit me up if you have any questions, comments, or concerns.
How good's PoliTreks, by the way?
So good.
It's awesome.
Great show. Love the debate Trek episode.
Yes.
Stop.
Awesome. That was great.
Stop.
Yes.
Keep going.
No, really. I did, side note, and you can edit this out if you want, but I recorded Weekly Trek with Shashank last night, and I told Shashank, and I will tell you, I think that PoliTreks is incredibly special. I am impressed by every episode, whether it's talking about the news or talking about the subject of the podcast. I think that, yes, while you guys think it's so niche and everything and weird or whatever, like it's amazing. It's unique and special, and I'm so impressed every episode that I listen to. And so I do want this to stay in, that if you have not listened to PoliTreks, go listen to PoliTreks. You are missing out. And go find Barry and Shashank at STLV and tell them how amazing they are. Okay.
That means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Jeff, where can we find you?
Echoing everything that you just said, by the way, Heather, about PoliTreks. You guys are fantastic. I won't reiterate everything, but I am Warp Factor Jeff on Twitter, and you can also find me in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook with yourself, Heather, and our other co-administrator, the wonderful Jesse Akendo.
Yep, I am there 24/7. Okay, not quite, but a lot of the time you'll find
Jeff,
me there.
Question, what is the percentage likelihood of a visit from Santa Gorn at STLV 2018?
150%.
Oh, okay. Because it may or may not be true that the only reason I'm coming back for a second year was that I missed a photo op with Santa Gorn.
Oh, we will have to work that out. But he will definitely be back this year. It is planned. We are going to have brand new pins to give away, so third-year pins. So if anybody has the first and the second year, you got to find me again and get the third-year pin. So I will be there. I don't know how many days I'm doing yet. At least a couple. So I'll make sure that I send you a note when I'm going to be out.
Yes, we will make announcements in the group. I will be Santa Gorn's elf.
It's a happenstance thing. Maybe I'll have to come back for a third year if I miss out again.
Oh,
yeah,
maybe.
you're going to miss the pin.
Oh, man. Maybe I'll have to, I won't let you know that we have to come back next year. Kidding.
Okay, I am on Twitter at LLAPosper, which is LLAPAWSPER. The show is at Shore Leave. Our network is at Tricorder Show. We are the tricordertransmissions.com, and you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. If you like what we do, we would love your support. It doesn't matter if it's $1, $5. Being a patron gets you some really cool stuff like an exclusive pin to add to your pin collection. Like there's a whole tricorder pin collection, y'all know.
Yeah, there is.
They're like Pokemon, got to catch them all. And then coming up very soon in I think 10 days, June 14th, is our first Patreon hangout that will be hosted by Trek Profiles host John Krikorian. And Jeff, I think you're going to co-host that?
I will be there as well, and I believe that Marty Ali from Reading Trek will also be there.
Awesome. So that will give you a chance to talk to our hosts and just talk about Trek. So yeah, get on over to Patreon and get in on that. I'm kind of jealous that I don't get to go because I'm busy, but regardless, yeah, it's such a bummer. We're going to do more of that kind of stuff. You can always find unedited versions of our episodes on Patreon. We did a Disco Trek special Patreon episode, and we'll be doing more of that stuff as time goes on. So, yeah, without further ado, we will be back soon. We have STLV vendor extravaganza planned. So we've got 4 vendors, 2 returning, and, well, I guess 3 returning, 1 new, but 1 hasn't been there for a few years. So lots of fun stuff to talk about and some guest updates, stuff like that. So we will see you soon. A few weeks, I guess.
Live long and prosper.